so the last type of factor label method we're going to look at today is complex units. So we're converting both the top and the bottom from one unit to another. Top and bottom conversions may be multi-step, so we might be looking at multiple conversion factors here. But what you have to remember is to write your equivalence measures of each of the units involved. So look at what's going on at the top, look at what's going on at the bottom. So if I look at the top units here, 74 meters per second, 2 kilometers per hour. Okay, meters is going to kilometers, so let's write the equivalence measure. 1 kilometer is equal to 10 to the third meters, and seconds is going to hours. So 1 hour is equivalent to 60 minutes. 1 minute is equivalent to 60 seconds. Now that should be knowledge that you've had outside of class. So I am going to start asking you to apply information that you know, like 12 inches for 1 foot. If you ever come across units that you're not sure how to convert, look up online the equivalence measures. If you just Google, seconds to hours, it'll tell you how many seconds are in an hour. So you can convert between units. You're not always going to be given everything that you need in order to complete your problem sets. You will be given what you need to complete your tests. So my starting point is going to be the number associated with a unit, 74. My ending point is going to be an empty unit, kilometers per hour. I take my starting point, 74 meters per 1 second. Now, these are fractional units. So when I have a fractional unit, this is the only time I'm going to have a unit on the bottom in my starting point. Okay, so 74 meters per 1 second. So let's convert the top first. Meters has to go on the bottom. Look for the equivalence measure with meters in it, which means that the unit that has to go on top is kilometers. Plug in the values that belong. 1, 10 to the third. Meters cancel. I'm left in kilometers. Now my top is converted. I just need to worry about my bottom. So if seconds is on the bottom in my starting point, it has to be on the top in my next equivalence measure in order to cancel. We'll look for the equivalence measure with seconds. It's the last one. So if seconds is on the top, minutes has to go on the bottom. Plug in the values that belong. 60 seconds for 1 minute. Seconds cancels. I'm in minutes. Alright, so I'm currently in kilometers per minute. If I read the only 2 units that aren't canceled, it's kilometers per minute. But that's not what the question asks me for. It asks me for kilometers per hour, so I need to convert minutes to hours. Well, I've already used this equivalence measure. I've already used this equivalence measure. So the only one left is hours to minutes. Well, if minutes is on the bottom, it has to go on the top. If minutes is here, then the other unit has to be hours. I plug in the numbers that belong. 1 hour, 60 minutes. Minutes cancel. I'm currently in kilometers per hour, which is the unit my question asked me for. So at this point I can solve. I'm going to multiply across the top, divide by the bottom. 74 times 1 times 60 times 60 divided by 1 divided by 10 raised to the third divided by 1 divided by 1 gives me an answer of 266 kilometers per hour. So I know they seem very complicated. Write your equivalence measures and then figure out how you get where you need to go. So if I read problem 2, convert 4.06 centimeters per hour to millimeters per second. So my top is going from centimeters to millimeters. My bottom is going from hours to seconds. So I'm going to use the same time equivalence measures. 60 minutes, 1 minute, 60 seconds. And then for the top, I have to be able to go from centimeters to millimeters. So I'm actually going to have to go through base. 1 centimeter is 10 to the negative second meters. 1 millimeter is 10 to the negative third meters. How do you go about writing your equivalence measure? Look at all the units involved and think about the relationship between them. Alright, my starting point is a number associated with a unit. My ending point is an empty unit. So I take my starting point, 4.06 centimeters per 1 hour. Let's go ahead and convert the top first. If centimeters is on the top in my starting point, it has to be on the bottom. Find the equivalence measure with centimeters. So if centimeters is on the bottom, meters must go on the top. Plug in the values that belong. 10 to the negative second meters is equivalent to 1 centimeter. Centimeters cancel, I'm left in meters per hour. And I've used this equivalence measure. Well, I need to get to millimeters, so I'm going to use this next conversion factor to get to millimeters. Meters has to go on the bottom, which means if meters is here, millimeters has to go on the top. Plug in the values that they're married to. 1 millimeter, 10 to the negative third meters. Meters cancel. I'm currently in millimeters per hour. So now I can go and convert my time. If hour is on the bottom of my starting point, it has to be on the top in order to cancel. I'm going to erase the two equivalence measures that I've used just to get them out of the way. So if hours is on the bottom of my starting point, it has to be on the top here. Look for the equivalence measure with hours. So hours goes on the top, minutes goes on the bottom. Plug in the values that belong. 1 hour for 60 minutes. Hours cancel, I'm left in millimeters per minute. But my question asks for millimeters per second. So I need to convert between minutes and seconds. If minutes is on the bottom, it has to go on the top. If minutes is here, then the other piece has to be 60 seconds. 1 minute for 60 seconds. Minutes cancel. I'm left in millimeters per second. Millimeters per second. So at this point I can solve. Multiply all the way across the top, 4.06 times 10 to the negative second times 1 times 1 times 1 divided by 1 divided by 1 divided by 10 raised to the negative third divided by 60 divided by 60. When you do that, what you get is 0.011 millimeters per second. And that's my answer. So with two-step equations, you just need to make sure that you've written out all your equivalence measures, all the relationships between the units that are listed, and then just track them. See where they are, see where you need to place them in order to cancel. And once you've done that, the math becomes very simple.